The universe is trying to tell you something. It has been for decades. And the message, buried inside the most beautiful equations physics has ever produced, is not comforting. No one is coming. Not because the galaxy is empty, not because we are alone, but because the rules of reality itself make arrival impossible. And once you understand why, you will never look at the night sky the same way again. This is not a story about distance. Distance is a problem you solve with time. This is a story about something far more stubborn. The physics that sits between any two civilizations in this universe and says, not here, not ever. Picture a clear night. You are lying on your back somewhere dark, a field, a rooftop, far from any city. The stars are out in full, and for a moment you do what every human being eventually does. You count them. Not literally, but you feel the weight of that number. Hundreds, thousands. And those are just the ones your eye can catch. You know, somewhere in the back of your mind, that what you're seeing is ancient light. That the star directly above you might have died before your grandparents were born. That the photons landing on your retina right now left their source before the Roman Empire collapsed, before the pyramids were built, before any human being walked upright and looked up and wondered. And yet, and this is the part that doesn't feel strange enough yet, those stars are close, cosmically speaking. The nearest one, Proxima Centauri, sits just over 4 light years away. 4 years at the speed of light. That sounds manageable. That sounds like a problem engineering could one day solve. You lie there in the dark and you feel something. Not quite loneliness, something more like possibility. The universe is vast, yes, but vast things can still be crossed. Oceans seemed uncrossable once, continents, the upper atmosphere. Every barrier humanity has ever faced, we eventually went through it, or over it, or around it. So why not this one? Why not space? Here is where the night sky stops being poetic and starts being a physics problem. Because the feeling you have lying in that field, that sense of possibility, that instinct that says, given enough time, someone could get here. That feeling is based on an assumption so deep you have never once questioned it. The assumption is this, that the universe, however big, is essentially crossable. That space is like a very large ocean, cold, dark, dangerous, but fundamentally traversable. That the only thing standing between any two civilizations is distance, and distance surrenders to time, and time surrenders to patience and technology. That assumption is wrong. Not slightly wrong. Not wrong in a way that more advanced engineering could fix. Wrong in a way that is written into the structure of space-time itself. And the question, the real question, the one that breaks the entire framework of how we think about alien contact, is not how far away are they. The question is, what is the universe actually doing to the space between us? The textbook answer to why haven't aliens visited us has a name. It is called the Fermi paradox, after the physicist Enrico Fermi, who in 1950 sat down at lunch with a few colleagues and asked, with the casual confidence of a man who has just done a back-of-napkin calculation that ruins everything, where is everybody? The numbers are staggering. The Milky Way alone contains somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars. A significant fraction of those stars, conservative estimates say at least 20%, have planets in the so-called habitable zone, where liquid water can exist. The galaxy is roughly 13 billion years old. Even if intelligent life is extraordinarily rare, even if only 1 in a billion star systems ever produces a civilization, the math still spits out thousands of civilizations spread across our galaxy alone. And the galaxy is not that big, not by cosmic standards. A civilization with even modest interstellar travel, ships moving at 1% the speed of light, could theoretically colonize the entire Milky Way in about 10 million years. 10 million years sounds enormous, But life on Earth has been running for 3.8 billion years. 10 million years is a rounding error. So the textbook says, the silence is puzzling. The textbook offers explanations. Maybe civilizations destroy themselves. Maybe they go quiet. Maybe they're out there and we're simply not listening correctly. Maybe the universe is a very big place and signals get lost. These are all reasonable answers to the wrong question, because the textbook explanation assumes that the silence is about us, our technology, our listening, our brief window of existence. It treats the problem as a communication problem, or a timing problem, or a sociology problem. It is not. It is a geometry problem. And the geometry has been changing since the moment the universe was born. Here is the thing the textbook quietly skips over. In 1929, an astronomer named Edwin Hubble noticed something strange. Galaxies, all of them, in every direction, were moving away from us. Not just moving faster the farther away they were. The universe, it turned out, was not static. It was expanding. Space itself was stretching, like the surface of a balloon being inflated, carrying galaxies along with it like dots drawn in marker that spread apart as the rubber expands. This was astonishing, but physicists were ready to live with it. Expansion is fine. Expansion doesn't necessarily mean anything is unreachable. It just means far things are getting farther. You can still, in principle, cross a stretching space, as long as you move fast enough. Then, in 1998, things got much worse. Two independent teams of astronomers, both remarkably trying to measure the rate at which the universe's expansion was slowing down because gravity should be slowing it down, discovered something that neither team wanted to be the one to report. The expansion was not slowing down. It was speeding up. The universe is not just expanding, it is accelerating. Space between galaxy clusters is growing at an increasing rate, driven by something we cannot see, cannot measure directly, cannot explain in any satisfying way, and have given the magnificently honest name of dark energy. As of 2024, dark energy makes up approximately 68% of everything in the universe. It is the dominant ingredient of reality, and we have essentially no idea what it is. Here is the concrete number that changes everything. The current rate of expansion, called the Hubble constant, is approximately 70 kilometers per second per megaparsec. What that means in human terms is this. For every 3.26 million light-years of distance between two objects, those objects are moving apart at an additional 70 kilometers per second. And because dark energy is accelerating this process, that rate is not fixed. It grows. There is a distance, approximately 14.5 billion light-years from Earth, called the Hubble radius, or the cosmic event horizon. Beyond this line, space is expanding away from us faster than light. Not the objects in that space, the space itself. No object in that region, regardless of its speed, regardless of its technology, regardless of how badly it wants to arrive here, can ever reach us. The expansion carries it away faster than any signal or ship could ever travel. That boundary is not a wall. It is something far stranger. It is a permanent, physics-enforced horizon, and it is shrinking. Imagine you are standing on a moving walkway at an airport, the kind that carries you forward at a fixed speed while you walk. Now imagine that the walkway starts accelerating, moving faster and faster beneath your feet. You are still walking toward the exit, but the walkway is now pulling you backward faster than your legs can carry you forward. You do not hit a wall. You do not bounce off anything. You simply cannot arrive. No matter how hard you walk, no matter how fast, the gap grows not because the exit moved, but because the ground beneath you is working against you, and getting better at it with every passing second. Now put a civilization in that scenario, a species that evolved on a planet 20 billion light-years from Earth, a species that built spacecraft 1 million years ago, Spacecraft that can travel at 10% the speed of light, which is an almost unimaginable technological achievement. Those ships launched. They pointed at our coordinates. They have been traveling faithfully for 1,000,000 years. And they are farther from us now than when they started. Not because they turned around, not because anything went wrong, because the space between their origin and our location is expanding faster than they can cross it. Every year their position relative to Earth falls further back. Their instruments, if they have them, would show our galaxy receding, accelerating away, as if we are fleeing. From their perspective, we are. From ours, so are they. And neither of us is moving. This is the paradox that lives at the heart of modern cosmology. Motion in an expanding universe is not always what it appears. A civilization can be traveling toward you at tremendous speed and still be getting farther away, because the canvas on which the journey is drawn is being stretched beneath them. There is no ship fast enough, no technology advanced enough, no patience long enough to overcome an accelerating expansion. Once an object crosses beyond the cosmic event horizon, it is gone. Not dead, not destroyed, just permanently, irrevocably unreachable. And here is the thing that the thought experiment makes visceral. This is not a distant future problem. This is happening right now. Galaxies are crossing our event horizon as you read this sentence. Civilizations, if they exist in those galaxies, are becoming permanently inaccessible to us, not in some theoretical far future, but in the lived present, at a rate of roughly 1 galaxy per year, falling beyond the point of no return. The universe is not sitting still while we figure out interstellar travel. It is actively reducing the number of places we could ever reach, and it has been doing this for billions of years. To understand why the expansion accelerates, why dark energy behaves the way it does, you need 3 layers of explanation, because the truth has 3 floors, and each one is stranger than the last. The first floor is intuitive. Think of space not as empty room, but as a substance, something that has properties, that can bend, stretch, and in this case, push. Dark energy behaves like a pressure built into space itself, not a force pushing on things, a property of the vacuum, of nothingness, that causes space to expand. The more space there is, the more dark energy there is. The more dark energy, the faster the expansion. It is a self-amplifying process, a feedback loop written into the fabric of reality, getting louder every second. The second floor is mathematical. Einstein's field equations of general relativity include a term called the cosmological constant, represented by the Greek letter lambda. Einstein originally introduced it as a fudge factor to keep his model of the universe static, then famously discarded it when Hubble proved the universe was expanding, calling it his greatest blunder. It turned out to be not a blunder, but a prophecy. The cosmological constant, reinterpreted as the energy density of the vacuum, predicts exactly the accelerating expansion we observe. What lambda tells us, in plain language, is this: empty space has energy. It is not neutral. It is not passive. It pushes. And it pushes harder as it gets more of itself to work with. The third floor is where language starts to fail. What dark energy tells us about reality is that the vacuum, the baseline state of the universe, the condition of having nothing, is not zero. It has a value. It has a property. And that property is actively restructuring the large-scale geometry of the cosmos in a way that is permanent and irreversible. The universe is not merely expanding. It is sorting itself into isolated islands of matter, galaxy clusters gravitationally bound to each other, separated by growing deserts of empty, accelerating space. Eventually, in perhaps 100 billion years, every galaxy cluster will exist in complete isolation. No light from outside will be visible. The universe will look, from any vantage point, like a single island of stars floating in total, infinite darkness. The isolation is not coming. It has always been the destination. At the atomic scale, this story sounds abstract, but follow it across scales and something deeply uncomfortable emerges. At the human scale, the expansion is invisible. The distance between you and the person next to you is not growing because of dark energy. Gravity, electromagnetism, the forces that bind matter together. They overwhelm the expansion at close range. You will never feel the universe pulling your furniture apart. The effect only dominates at distances measured in millions of light years. This is either reassuring or the most chilling thing you will hear today, depending on how you think about it. At the planetary scale, the scale of our solar system, expansion is still irrelevant. The Sun is not pulling away from Earth due to dark energy. Gravitational binding wins at this scale by an enormous margin. Our solar system, and the Milky Way, and our local group of galaxies, roughly 50 galaxies gravitationally tangled together, will remain bound for timescales that dwarf the current age of the universe. At the galactic cluster scale, everything changes. Beyond our local group, every galaxy we can currently observe is, right now, accelerating away. The Virgo cluster, the nearest major cluster of galaxies, roughly 65 million light-years away, is currently moving away from us at about 1,200 kilometers per second. That number is not fixed. It grows. At some point, the Virgo cluster will cross our event horizon. It will not disappear. It will redshift, its light stretching to longer and longer wavelengths, fading, cooling, until it is effectively invisible. Not because it went dark, but because the light it sends can no longer reach us. At the cosmic scale, the implication is total. Of the roughly 2 trillion galaxies estimated to exist in the observable universe, the vast majority are already beyond our ability to ever reach. Not beyond our current technology, beyond any technology, permanently. And the number of galaxies within our reachable universe, the subset of space from which we could, in theory, receive a visitor, is shrinking. The universe began with everything theoretically accessible. It will end with almost nothing reachable. We are right now somewhere in the middle of that transition, watching the accessible universe close like a door, slowly, but without the possibility of being stopped. Here is the realization, the one that arrives slowly, and then all at once. We have spent decades framing the question of alien contact as a search problem. We point radio telescopes at promising star systems. We listen for signals. We reason about the probability of intelligence and technology and the will to communicate. We frame the Fermi paradox as a mystery about motivation or survival or the timing of civilizations. But the silence is not a mystery. It is a geometry. The universe has a structure. That structure includes horizons, permanent boundaries beyond which no information, no signal, no ship can ever travel. Those horizons are not static. They are contracting from the point of view of any observer. The accessible universe is smaller today than it was yesterday. It will be smaller tomorrow than it is today. Think about what that means. Any civilization that might have evolved in a galaxy now beyond our event horizon, and there are billions of such galaxies, was already unreachable before the first human being ever looked at the sky and wondered. Not unreachable given our technology, unreachable in principle, unreachable by the laws of physics as we understand them. The window for contact, if there ever was one, was determined by the expansion history of the universe, not by the ingenuity of any species. We did not miss the window because we weren't ready. We missed it because the universe was already old when we arrived, and the geometry had already been set. This is not the discovery of a wall. It is the discovery of a river, moving in one direction always, carrying everything away from everything else, slowly making the universe a lonelier place at a scale so vast it takes cosmology to even notice. The expansion doesn't feel personal, but its consequences are as final as anything physics has ever produced. The universe is not hostile. It is indifferent. And that is so much harder to argue with. What does it mean, genuinely mean, to exist in a universe that is structurally, permanently isolating itself? We build our stories around arrival. Every mythology has a visitor, a messenger, something from beyond that comes with knowledge or fire or warning. Every science fiction narrative rests on the premise that the stars are destinations, that the vast dark between them is a problem to be solved rather than a condition to be accepted. We point our telescopes and our signals outward with the faith of people who believe the door is just very far away, not locked. But what if the most important thing physics has ever told us is not about particles or forces or the origin of mass, but about loneliness? What if the accelerating expansion of the universe is the universe's final statement on the matter? We are here. We are alone in the sense that matters physically, not because life is rare, but because the architecture of space-time makes meeting impossible beyond a certain scale. The civilizations that exist, if they exist, are locked into their own expanding bubbles of accessible space, watching their own horizons close, wondering in their own languages whether anyone else is out there, sending their own signals into a void that grows faster than the signals travel. I don't know if that is tragic or beautiful. I genuinely don't. What I do know is this: the question, "Are we alone?" might be the wrong question. The question the universe is actually posing, the one written in dark energy and expansion and the geometry of space-time, is something closer to, what do you do with the time you have, in the place you are, with the people within reach? The cosmos has given us a horizon, not as punishment, just as a fact. And what we build inside that horizon is, apparently, entirely up to us. Go back to that field, the dark sky, the stars scattered overhead like a question no one has finished asking. You know now what you didn't know then, that the light reaching your eyes is a message from a universe that has been shrinking, not in size but in possibility, since before the earth was formed. That the stars you can see represent a tiny fraction of what exists, and an even tinier fraction of what is physically reachable. That somewhere out there, right now, a photon is being emitted by a galaxy crossing our event horizon, the last photon from that galaxy that will ever reach us. And it is traveling toward Earth, and it will arrive in 1 billion years, or 1 million years, or perhaps never, stretched, red, and faint by the expansion. A final signal from a place that is saying goodbye without knowing it. The universe is not empty. It is full of matter and energy and perhaps minds. But it is also structured in a way that makes the vast majority of that fullness permanently inaccessible to us, and us to it. The silence above you on that dark night is not the silence of an empty universe. It is the silence of a universe too large for its own connections to hold. The night sky is not an invitation. It is a photograph of places we will never go, taken with light that left before we existed, showing us a universe that has already moved on. No one is coming, but the stars are still beautiful,